I am successful. I look for and find opportunities where others see nothing. I am a lifetime learner. I am solution focused. I see only solutions. I am a solution. Welcome to the Be Transformed podcast. I'm the catalyst and my name is Lanre Olusola. And this is your go-to space for very practical mind transforming conversations that would empower you to overcome all of life's biggest challenges. So are you struggling with your mental health? Are you struggling with your relationships? Are you struggling in your career? Are you struggling in your business or in your finances? Are you struggling with your organization? Together, we'll help you solve the problems that you may be encountering. Yes, today we're diving into a very, very critical topic, and our topic is unlocking creativity and innovation using design thinking. I am joined by Vanessa Holmes, a very loyal sister, an out-of-the-box thinker, a visionary who sees beyond boundaries, a disruptor who constantly innovates, a genius in the field of creativity. And Vanessa is a multi-skilled strategist and facilitator with global expertise. Mission in life, check this out. Her mission in life is to unlock the magic of Africa and Africa's potential. That's right. The potential of Africans and the potential of Africa. Her approach to leadership is transformational, is unprecedented, and she is a design thinking expert. She's a creative problem solver, strategic brand developer, and a culture and organizational transformational specialist. She has impacted many organizations and lives across South Africa, across West Africa, across the United Kingdom, Germany, and United States of America. She was very pivotal in, building the Chicken Republic brand, Health Plus, American Tower Corporation, Visa, Nando, Alan Gray, Nedbank, and I can keep on going on and on. She's the CEO and Managing Director of Sense to Solve, and we're working towards a collaboration and a partnership that you're going to see very, very soon. She's a very creative person and she has won many awards for her designs and her strategy on brand recognition. She holds a master's degree in analytical psychology from the University of Essex. Welcome to the Be Transformed podcast, Vanessa. How are you today?
Hi, Lanre. Wow. Geez, that's quite a story to live up to.
Well, that's your story. I just read all your achievements. So let's dive into this conversation.
So proud
I've been waiting.
That glowing introduction.
Yeah, I've been dying to have this conversation with you. The world needs to tap into your genius mind. So over the last 10 years, I've worked in research. I've researched the 50 secrets of the world's most successful people. I studied the lives of people like Oprah Winfrey, Nelson Mandela, Mahatma Gandhi, Mother Teresa, J.P. Morgan, Henry Ford, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, Beyonce, Jay-Z, name them, Burna Boy, Whiskey, Tiwa Savage, Don Jazzy, and the list goes on. And I found 50 secrets, 50 principles that these guys shared, and these were the fundamental principles that made them successful. And I've shared with you these 50 secrets, and I've asked you to do one of the most difficult things that, for my guests on this show. I said, pick out 5 of the top secrets and principles that you have seen across the world, having worked with top leaders, having worked with top performers. What are those top 5 secrets that you think are most critical? Let's start off with that. Over to you, Vanessa.
So first of all, Lanre, I want to tell you that this exercise took me about 4 hours because
Wow.
They're all so good. They're so good. They really are deserving of a lot of thought. And I think that part of the reason it took me so long is they're kind of tricky, right? Because they're very systemic. They're very interconnected. So I've decided that I'm going to be a little bit tricky and interconnected with
So you want to do more than 5? That's what you're telling me. I told you that she's very creative.
See, I'm going to lead as if it's 5, but I've got it.
Let's go for it.
Yeah, okay.
Let's go for it.
The first thing is, I think that based on who I am and why I'm here, I almost felt kind of pressured to say, okay, well, I guess I need to pick innovation and I need to pick identity. So, of course, where the tricky bit comes in is that those innovation in itself comes with its own set of mindsets, and I can pick up many of those mindsets already in your list. So, the way that we look at failure is like really important in relation to innovation. To be optimistic is important in the way that we look at innovation. Likewise, identity. I mean, in my experience working with people and companies, you can't really even start to consider the concept of identity until you know yourself. So, know thyself or know yourself, be you a company or a person, I think is probably the most crucial underlying or underpinning aspect of identity. It takes time for us to go and say, who are we really? And I suppose with that as well comes the other great one of yours, which is intentionality. Not only who am I today? But certainly from branding and innovation, who do I want to be tomorrow? And of course, how do I get there? And then we start to see all the systemic nature of all your other wonderful principles that you've put out there. But I think for me, maybe what will be more interesting is for me to talk more personally and to say a little bit about the qualities that you've listed, that sort of really, really resonated with me as a human being. So I think that the biggest one for me is attitude. So
Ooh.
so I think attitude for me is, and I think it's hugely important in creativity, and I actually think it's important in all areas of life. And I think that it's wonderful because your attitude actually is the one thing in life that you actually have absolute control over. So you can't control situations, you can't control other people, but you can certainly control how you see them. And maybe that's part of the foundational points when it comes to creativity. And I think, like to have an attitude and to have with that attitude to have a growth mindset, to have an attitude that doesn't say I can't, it's too difficult, I won't be able to, but to have an open mindset and a growth mindset that says, well, if I show up and I try hard and I do my best and I learn and I keep doing it, I'm going to get better and better. And actually, I can, because anything is possible. Then I think with that kind of an attitude, yeah, then I think you can go anywhere. And of course, self-talk is just so important in that. Again, we're back to, know thyself. So really becoming aware of like, what is that conversation that you have with yourself? Are you telling yourself, I'm not an artist, I can never be creative, I can't do that? Or are you saying just maybe I can? So for me, attitude's
Wow.
a big one.
Wow. I love
And
I
then
love that. I love that. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Yeah, keep going.
okay, and then I picked gratitude because it rhymes with attitude.
Ooh, rhyming. You're rhyming now. Okay, all right. Gratitude. Yes, that's a very big one, though. Wow. Yeah.
No, but I actually picked gratitude because for me as a human being, gratitude is my hormone replacement therapy. It is my anti-anxiety medication. It's everything for me rolled up into one because I strongly believe that you can't really feel anxious and stressed and grateful at the same time. So as well, when you're trying to be creative, you can't really feel anxious and be all stressed out and want to be creative. It's a little bit like trying to drive a car with your foot on the gas and the brake at the same time. The one attitude will actually cancel out the other one. Creativity generally comes much easier when we're playful, when we're happy. I think that's the land where creativity thrives in. So to try and be in good spirits is also really important. And then I think that there's something even more interesting than that to it. For me, gratitude almost has like a spiritual root to it. And I suppose that's one of the things I love so much about your work that you're doing. The African model of coaching is that it really brings the concept of human spirituality back into the mix. And so I just want to touch for a moment on the idea that gratitude comes from the word precari. Yeah, I think it's precari, which means to pray or to ask. And I mean, yeah, yeah. I mean, so pray, sorry, I'm getting this mixed up. Prayer comes from the Latin precari, which means to pray or to ask, whereas gratitude comes from to praise or to value, which is pretari. You know what I mean? So it's actually different. But I actually think that in the process of creativity and life, both are important. And when it comes to creativity, we've forgotten how to ask for ideas. Do you know what I mean? So I know that when I'm stuck for an idea, like I ask, like I'll, before I go to bed at night or whatever, I'll say, I'm struggling with this. May I have an idea, please? And then, of course, when the idea comes through, I feel grateful and pleased and happy. And then it is in that environment of asking and receiving ideas, with gratitude, that it creates an environment where I think creativity can flourish.
I love those two concepts, precari and picari.
Yeah,
Right,
so
right.
it's
So
Picari and
one is a
Picari. I think,
picari and precari. So one
yeah,
comes before the other. And this is quite powerful because the Bible says that when you pray, believe that you have received it and then you will have it. Now, how do you believe that you have received it? And what's the evidence that you believe you have received it? If I say, Vanessa, I'm going to give you $10,000, right? Until you receive it, you're not going to be grateful and thankful. You're not going to say thank you until you receive it physically in your hands. So what the Bible is teaching us is that when you pray and you visualize yourself receiving it, then you go into a place of gratitude and thanksgiving. And then
exactly.
it manifests in the physical. So don't stop being grateful and thankful until it physically manifests, because prayer is about going into a dimension of existence that is not in the physical. It's in the spiritual dimension. You are visualizing anything outside of the physical, right? Is spiritual. What you imagine is spiritual. What you think is spiritual. What you ask for that hasn't yet physically manifested is spiritual. When you ask for it, precari. When you pray for it, when you ask for it, then receive it. Believe that you have received it and be grateful and thankful, and then it will manifest in the physical. I love that. Thank you for that expose. Wow. You see, I told you that she's a genius. Just having conversations with her is taking us to the depth of manifesting. So Vanessa, let's dive into unlocking creativity and innovation using design thinking. And I've got a very, very interesting question. Who are your top 2 to 3 creative influencers? What are their top 2 to 3 quotes? And what quotes have influenced you the most and why?
So, based on kind of what we were just talking about, because I think it follows on really quite nicely. And I think that, I love the connection with the Bible, and that is definitely for sure like one form of spirituality. But I'm worried that maybe there will be some people watching that'll say, oh, well, that doesn't work with my view of spirituality, or I'm not a Christian, so how can that be for me? But it's very interesting that even thinkers like Carl Jung, who I suppose he didn't really come at it from a particularly religious predisposition. He thought about it more from the point of the unconscious, or from the collective unconscious. And he definitely thought that, like, when you could tap into the unconscious or into the collective unconscious, what you're doing is you're tapping into a reservoir of shared experiences or of symbols or of archetypes. And I like that sort of that thought, you know what I mean, where you can go fishing for ideas in your subconscious or in your unconscious. Because that's certainly what I'm doing when I'm asking for an idea. I'm recognizing that even from a physiological point of view, that the newest part of my brain, my prefrontal cortex, which is my consciousness, is extremely limited. It processes quite slowly, whereas the bigger, older part of my brain is very, very fast. You know what I mean? It's got a much stronger, faster processor. So, however the lens is for you and how you want that metaphor to work for you, like to be able to go shopping for your ideas in the unconscious, I think is a wonderful thing. And I'm very inspired by a lot of what Jung said, And one of the quotes that he said that I really love is, the creation of something new is not accomplished by intellect, but by the play of instinct acting on inner necessity. the creative mind plays with the things that it loves. Isn't that beautiful? So it's like, it's really, I think that that's so powerful. And he also said, creative power is mightier than the processor. So that's also again saying, you're the vessel, do you know what I mean? But there's a world of creativity and power that, if you know how to access it, is available to everyone. And very interestingly, I think, is that we always think about Einstein as like a super scientific kind of a dude, and he gave us the theory of relativity and whatever. But actually, Einstein said something that was really, really fascinating, and he was a firm believer in imagination. So Einstein always used to say that logic will get you from A to B, and imagination will get you everywhere, which is quite wonderful as well. And he said that the intuitive mind, which I suppose can be compared to the mind of God if you're Christian, or to, in Jung's case, the collective unconscious, is a sacred gift. And the rational mind, the prefrontal cortex, is a faithful servant. But the problem is that we live in a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. And so for me, for both of those, I think that's really, really powerful. And then you asked me for three, and I'll let you concentrate. I know I'm getting a bit carried away, but I love how the three of them.
Let's dive deeper into this, so we don't get
deeper, and then I'm going to let you come at me with questions. Do you want to dive deeper first?
Yeah, let me just dive and contextualize this. So we talked about Carl Jung, and we talked about tapping into the unconscious and the subconscious, and to fish out, creativity, ideas, solutions from that space. And we know that the subconscious, when we talk about the subconscious, we're talking about the inner man, the spirit and the soul. So we're talking about, and we're tripartite beings. We're a spirit being, we have a mind and a soul, and we live in an earth suit, right? And we exist within an environment. And so what we're saying here is creativity is born out of tapping into. So you go into yourself, right? To tap into ideas. So you go into your thoughts, you go into your imagination, you go into your inner mind to tap into the power that lies within there, right? You tap in there to tap into your instincts, what some people call intuition, and you release your creative power. And it talks about that process being mightier than the possessor, that's the physical being. So the possessor is the vessel that carries that processor. This is so powerful. And Einstein says that imagination takes you everywhere. And imagination is the ability to tap into your subconscious and see with your inner eyes what you can't see with physical eyes, and travel from within where you can't go physically, and create solutions that physically you can't see. And it says that tapping and utilizing the intuitive mind, that is the subconscious mind, is a sacred divine gift. Wow. But a lot of us invest in the rational mind, who takes the instructions, and executes. And I say to people that 95% of everything that you do is controlled by your subconscious mind. Your conscious mind just executes the instructions. So what controls your heart? What controls your intestines? What controls your brain? What controls your eyes? What controls all your functions? It's the subconscious mind that gives instructions and ensures that you are functioning even when you are asleep. So it's important for us to understand that we're not utilizing ourselves to the max. A lot of people invest in the rational mind and in the possessor, the container, rather than the content. The real value of anything, whether it's Coca-Cola, whether it's Pepsi, whether it's whatever it is, the real value is in the content, not the container. Wow. So let me let you keep going, Vanessa. Keep going.
So that's part of it. But what I'm going to say is that, so let's get on to probably my third most favorite, and it's hard to choose between them. So let's actually start with Edward de Bono. So Edward de Bono, father of lateral thinking, amazing man. I mean, he basically brought lateral thinking to us. And, if anybody doesn't know about lateral thinking, a nice way to understand it is that Edward de Bono said, you can't dig a new hole by digging the same hole deeper. Okay, so he understood very well.
Hold on. You cannot dig a new hole by digging the same hole deeper.
Deeper. So to dig a new hole, you actually have to go take a step to the left, to the right, to the front, and you've got to go dig a new hole. But he said this knowing really, really well that our brains were actually not built for thinking. Our brains were built for survival. So the human brain is a map making machine, and it strives to be energy efficient. So if it's used to taking a regular path and that path is deeply ingrained, it will traverse that path because that path requires the least amount of energy. That's why change is always difficult. It always requires commitment, focus, you know what I mean? And creativity is no different because you've got to step off of that path and you've got to go and dig a new hole, and that's effortful.
Yeah, wow.
He understood that. I think that I do. I know you're going to weigh in here, but I think that he understood that like really, really well is great. So he gave us tools that actually help us to knock ourselves off that path, and there's many of them, and it's resulted in innovation methodologies like creative problem solving, and you also actually find a lot of those same tools are used in design thinking. So maybe you just want to unpack that for a second before I go.
Yeah. I mean, I particularly love the fact that, your brain takes you to the path of least resistance. We call it the neurological pathway, right? And that is when a habit is formed. You don't think about it. Just think about it, guys. You don't think about the process that you follow to fulfill a habit. You just do it. That's the path of least resistance. And that's what the brain does. The brain is also the mind of the possessor, the mind of the container. You don't think with it. You don't think deep with it. You don't reflect with it. You don't meditate with it. You don't imagine with it. You don't utilize it for the best things that can come out of you. You use it to survive. You use it for fight, for flight, for freeze, and for those responses that make you survive. It's important for you to be able to take lateral pathways, create new neurological pathways, and there are different tools that help you with it. And it's important for you to understand that life is about progress and growth. Life is about progress and growth, and there is no progress and growth without new learning. There is no progress and growth without unlearning old ways and old patterns. And so it is therefore very, very important for you to begin to think about empowering yourself with the tools that help you think differently, that help you think laterally, that help you dig new holes and help you create new neurological pathways. So I'm going to challenge Vanessa to share with us one or two or three tools. So she's talked about design thinking as a tool. I want her to share with us another tool, and then we will delve into this design thinking as a very powerful creativity and innovation tool. And how does it work? Why does she like it? Why does she use it? What does she use it for? So just mention maybe two other and thinking tools, and then we'll come back to design thinking as one of your preferred, and why and what you use it for.
Can I just take one little tiny step back, because I think it follows on so nicely from what you're saying. And I also think that it's an important insight and mindset for people to understand. Somewhere in society there's crept in this idea where only some people are creative. Not everybody. So artists are creative, poets are creative, musicians are creative, but creativity has been this thing that is reserved for the fruitful few, And I want to challenge that, and I want to share something really powerful with you, because I think it's based on the mapping. And I think until we get this right, it's much more difficult for anybody to even learn or to believe that they can learn to be creative. So there's a very interesting man called Professor Michael Rand. He did a whole lot of research with children and then into adulthood. And what he points out is that nearly all children, unless they have a brain defect or something, in their early, like 0 to 3 years age, operate at 100% creative genius. And as they get older, that diminishes to the point that I think it was by the time you're over 21 years old, only 3% of the world's population operate at that level. So my question for you, Lanre, is where do you think it went? Where did that creativity go? Where do you think it went?
We just buried it. We just buried it by learning other ways of doing things rather than creative ways and approaches of doing things. Parents would tell you, stop doing that. Don't do that. The world we tell you you failed. So we've labeled failure as a negative thing rather than seeing failure as a process to success. And there is absolutely no way that you can be creative without failing, without play, without so we have killed the child in us. We've grown up too fast. And you said it, that creativity is born out of fun and happiness.
Mm-hmm.
And children are always playing. They have a playful mindset, and we have told ourselves that we cannot play anymore. We have grown up, we are growing up, and so stop playing. What we are doing is we're killing our creativity. Wow, this is so profound. I love this conversation, Vanessa.
And I love what you said. It got buried because the correct actual answer that Michael Ray gives to this question is it didn't go anywhere. It got covered over by the voice of judgment. So when powerful is that same creativity, that same level of creative genius is still in you, but your little map making machine has put a whole lot of pathways of I can't, I don't, I'm not, if onlys on top of it. But that creativity, that is still there to you. And you don't need to be an artist or a poet or whatever to be creative. If you take a new route home from work, highly creative. If you add extra spices in your cooking in the evening, highly creative. If you move your furniture around, it's all highly creative. So what we need to do before we can even start learning the tools is we have to believe that we have creative ability. We've got to know that, and build our creative confidence with the right attitude and the right mindset and the right self-talk.
This is the point where we say to ourselves, I am a creative genius. I want everyone that is listening to me to say this, that I am a creative genius. I release the child in me. I release the creative child in me. I align with the creative child in me, and I activate the power of creativity within me. Yes, I become one with my creative genius. And I begin on a daily basis to do little small things that demonstrate my creativity. Over to you, Vanessa.
So, and here's another, this is actually a very powerful tool. It links to growth mindset. But instead of saying I can't, as Amy Edelson's, it was, I think, no, not Amy Edelson, Carol Dweck, right? Who started Growth Mindset. Carol Dweck always says, just don't say I can't, say I can't do it yet. It's the power of yet. It's not I can't do it yet. But with practice and persistence, you can do just about anything. Getting back to some lateral thinking tools from Edward de Bono, I want to say two other things about Edward de Bono as well, but I'll deal with the tools first. So Edward de Bono came up with wonderful things. So one of them is to ask questions in a different way. So if you are stuck for an idea, instead of saying that's never going to work, so say I come up with an idea for Lanre and I take it to him and he says, oh, well, that's a nice idea, Vanessa, but we're never going to have the money for that. It's never going to happen. Never going to work. Then instead of just saying, okay, Lanre, and being all sad and going off to cry, I say, okay, well, how might we do this in a way that can be affordable? Or what can be all the ways that we can raise money for this? Or who might be all the people that we can partner with to make this idea better? Or how might we make this less expensive? Do you see? So the thing with creativity as well is it all depends on where do I move my focal point, because when I've got my focal point on the cost of it, that gives me a certain amount of alternatives. When I put my focal point on the different ways of doing something, that gives me a different amount of alternatives. So by asking questions that shift our focal point, what we do as well as we open up more alternatives to a problem than what we might have seen before.
And wow, I love that. I love that because that speaks about resourcefulness. They say that there are no unresourceful people. but only on resourceful states of being. So when you ask the right questions, it opens your mind up. It puts you in a state where you are resourceful and you are able to think through to find answers. I love those powerful coaching questions. I love those very, very powerful option opening questions because it gives you choices. Now, one of the things that happens when people are thinking I can't is they get stuck and their minds are blocked. But when you think, how else can I do it? And you change your focus to a state of resourcefulness, boom, your mind opens up. I love that. Asking questions in a different way is one tool. Give us another one.
Well, following on from that, so you can turn those how might we questions into a really rapid and amazing brainstorming technique. So all you need to do is say you've got a whole lot of friends or people, say you're in a team of colleagues, or you can just randomly choose people to help you, other people that you know. But take your how might we questions. If you're in a team, everybody writes one how might we question in the middle of a piece of paper. And then you send those questions around the room and you get everybody to answer that how might we question. So if you've got 10 or 15 people in a room, all of a sudden you've got 10 or 15 how might we questions in a matter of minutes. All of a sudden you have 100 ideas. And that's a very rapid way to come up with ideas. And something that we do in our own business as well to make ideas fun is we encourage crazy ideas. So we'll say, okay, we're all stuck for an idea now. Come, everybody think of at least one idea that's bound to get you fired. And then, you know what I mean? Or think of an idea that's going to get you thrown in jail. So you come up with a wild, crazy idea, and then you'll often find that if you then take that idea back and you look at it again, you'll say, wow, okay, well, there's actually something interesting about that idea. So how might we do it without getting fired? So you rerun it through the process again.
And I love that concept because it ties into an NLP concept that we call the Disney model. Walt
Oh
Disney
yes, I
lived
know.
his Disney lived his life in 3 cycles. He was a dreamer. So there was a day in his life every week that he dreamt. He dreamt and he dreamt and he imagined that anything was possible. And then the following day he became a critique. And he criticized every dream that he had yesterday. And the third day he became a realist. And he found the solution in between the critique and the dreamer. And that's how Disney World was born. And he encouraged his team to live in 3 day cycles. The dreamer, and they dreamt. They didn't allow anything to stop them from dreaming. The critique, they criticized every dream and they went into it. And then the realist was the one that helped them create the bridge between the critique and the dreamer. It's a very, very powerful model, the Disney model.
It's amazing, and it works very well with the design thinking principles and also with creative problem solving or lateral thinking. So what Edward de Bono knew very well, there's two things I actually want to say about this. So what he understood very well was the difference between divergent thinking and convergent thinking. So what you want to do is, like, if you're having a briefing that's all about facts and information and whatever, don't try and brainstorm at the same time that you're having a briefing, because you're using different faculties of your mind. So fill yourself with facts, go away, sleep on the facts, and then bring your team back together and only brainstorm. Be playful, make allowance for crazy ideas. Do you know what I mean? And then take those crazy ideas and then go and sleep on them and then come back and scrutinize them. But you don't want to just willy-nilly try and switch between divergence and convergence, because they are different. So it's better to focus on one, just like Disney did, where you do one thing at a time. And the other thing I really, really love about what you said about Disney as well, and this is another thing that Edward de Bono raised, is he said, in companies and in life, it's all too often that we only apply creativity to problems. Okay. So when there's a problem, the company brings everyone together and says, okay, now let's all get together to solve that problem. But he had this thing that he called EBNA, which stands for excellent but not enough. So how do we scrutinize the dreams? How do we make the good things better? How do we take a concept like democracy, which is excellent but ultimately not enough, and think about that before it's completely broken? So, and I think that's where the Disney one is clever, and that's why they were so magnificent, because they kept evolving things that were already excellent.
Wow, wow. I love that Ebner concept. Excellent, but not enough. Let's dive into creativity. Let's dive into problem solving. Let's dive into design thinking. Let's dive into innovation. So what is design thinking, and how does design thinking as a model, how does it help you become more creative, and how does it help you become more innovative?
So I think to understand design thinking, you've got to understand that there's the principles, there's the mindsets, and then there's the process. But in broad terms, design thinking is a human-centered approach to innovation. So what it does is it takes the customer or the user, the person that we're designing for, and it puts them in the driving seat of innovation. And it does that by asking, so what is it that this person truly wants and needs? We in design thinking, empathy is a big one. And we mustn't confuse empathy and sympathy. Because in empathy, I actually transport myself into your shoes and I imagine, well, what must it be like to be Lanre? You know what I mean? So I'm not feeling sorry for Lanre. I'm thinking, like, what does Lanre go through every day? How does Lanre juggle all these balls if I'm designing for you? So I actually transport myself into your shoes to understand your wants and needs from your perspective. And I think this is brilliant. I was going to say it earlier as well, is that, although we say creativity comes from the unconscious creative ideas or whatever, David Ogilvy, always used to talk about like lucky ideas, that's only some, you get a great idea and it's lucky, but you can't just get lucky like that all the time. So really good innovative solutions. I know that I always get a lot luckier when I go and I research. I go and I look at what's happening in the problem landscape. What are competitors doing? What are customers struggling with? What are their pains? What are their gains? What are the jobs that they're trying to get done? And you really, really understand what is the problem or the opportunities landscape look like. And then once you've got that solid understanding, then you can start to, do you know what I mean, define the challenge, to ideate, to prototype, to refine, to implement. So design thinking is literally like an iterative approach. It's based on discovery-driven growth, where from a place of customer understanding, what we're doing is we're coming up with ideas, we're prototyping and testing those ideas to learn and to refine them as rapidly as possible, wasting as little time and money as we can, so that at the end of the day, by the time we get to implementation, we've dramatically reduced our assumption to knowledge ratio because we've tested with real people. We've invested time in understanding what it is that people want and what the problem actually is. So it's that's I think in a
this is very powerful. Very, very powerful. And so what I hear you say is that, never create a product, never create a service, never create a solution outside of being customer focused. You've got to know what their needs are. You've got to know what their pain is. You've got to know what their problems are before you even start ideating. So I heard you say something so profound. So do your research. Spend a lot of time first to feel the pain of your target market. Spend a lot of time, right, to relate with the needs of your target market. Spend a lot of time to create the products and the services, because I find that a lot of people sit in their sitting rooms, sit in their offices, and then ideate. Oh yeah, they just ideate. They just create products and solutions. I'll tell you a class. I'll give you a classic, right? So I was teaching an executive coaching masterclass, a certification, and a product development manager tell me that, they were about to launch a product, and, and they had gone all the way to launching stage. And then I asked a few questions and he realized that, oops, we haven't gone through the process that we were supposed to have gone through. So we've created a product that we thought was phenomenal. But when we tested it, we realized that that product would not meet the needs of the marketplace. And the market is always looking at pricing. They're always looking at positioning. They're always looking at the product. They're always looking at so many things. And so it's not just about the product. It's not just about the branding of the product. That product has got to meet all the critical needs of the customer that you are creating it for. And this is the power of design thinking. So what is it that stops people, and why is it that organizations do not go through this simple protocol before they start wasting their time, before they start wasting their money on creating and then going marketing, and then they start spending more money on marketing a product that does not fit? What is the problem?
So I want to just say one thing quickly, Lanre, about it. I just want to just make it clear that, like, you can't also always ask people to tell you what it is that they want to need. Because, I mean, if you know very well in Nigeria that, like, if I go and ask everybody, what do you need right now? Everyone's going to tell me, well, I need cheap stuff, or I need to save money. Things are expensive or whatever. So it's like, you're going to get fairly predictable stuff. You need to really immerse. I think Apple understood that really well. It's like they understood the principle of being able to give the customer something that the customer didn't even know that they wanted. Because you won't always get the customer. So nobody, if you'd asked a customer, do you want a cell phone? They wouldn't have even known. Or do you want an iPhone? Or do you want an iPod or whatever? They wouldn't have known. So, but it's through that real ethnographic observation of watching what people do, how they behave, what it is that they struggle with, where they're bored or whatever, that you can pick up nuance like that. So I'm not suggesting that, like, everything is just as easy as, like, sending out a couple of questionnaires. I don't think it's quite that simple. And then to answer your second question, I think it's one of the greatest paradoxes ever. I think that most companies don't do it because they feel like they don't have any time. Okay, so the behavior that I notice most frequently is you'll see people say, come, let's come. We've got a problem. We've got a problem. We need to have a briefing. Okay. They call everybody into a room, and then for 20 minutes, they quickly tell everybody, like, what they think the challenge is. And they say, go off and solve it. Okay. So this brings me back to my dear friend Einstein. So when they asked Einstein, if you had 60 minutes to solve a complex problem, how would you spend your time? Okay. Einstein did not say, we'll have a 5-minute briefing and then go off and make solutions. He said, I would spend 55 minutes understanding the problem and 5 minutes coming up with the solution. Because when you take the time to really understand what's going on and what it really is that people want and need, whatever, your outcome will be better. And so then in the long term, you will actually save time and money. Whereas if you do it the other way around, you're going to waste time and money, and then you're going to sit back scratching your head and say, oh my goodness, why didn't we? If only we had. And you will suddenly find a lot of time to redo things that you didn't have time to do properly to start with.
Wow. Wow. This is so profound. And let's land. Let's bring this to Africa as we end this conversation. What is getting in our way of creativity and innovation in Africa? What exactly is it that is getting in our way? And quickly, what are 3 things that we need to do differently as Africans and in Africa?
So for me, I would say mindset is massive, and we have to operate with an open growth mindset. We cannot be going around thinking like we know everything. We can't be taught anything. And I think that with that is we have to collaborate. Innovation, real collaboration doesn't happen by accident. It's designed, and innovation certainly doesn't take place in a vortex. So we've got to actually learn to go and look for perspectives and opinions and things from people who don't think like we think. We've got to lean into the diversity of perspective. I mean, you and I were talking about it the other day, the whole brain thinking model. So it's not just when I say about diversity, I'm really not talking about race, age, gender, all the usual culprits. I'm talking about thinking preference. Me, I'm a conceptual thinker. So what's the best thing I can do if I'm designing a solution? Go find me an organized thinker, because my goodness, I hate Excel. You know what I mean? So I'm going to miss that part of the puzzle because I'm not good at it. So like, again, back to know yourself and surround yourself with people who think differently to you and who have different skills to those that you have.
I love that. I love that. Change your mindset, get into collaboration, and be intentional. And make sure that diversity does not separate you, but diversity makes you better. I think that we need to get out of religion, we need to get out of tradition, we need to get out of culture that is not adding any value to us. It is time for us to break free from this is how we used to do it. This is how our forefathers used to do it. Where did it get us? Where did it get us? It's time for us to break free from that mindset and for us to release the creative genius that is in Africa or the ancient wisdom. Africa. Yeah, the ancient wisdom in Africa. I mean,
as Africans, it's our right. It's like those days of Africa supposedly not contributing anything to civilization have to come to an end.
It is over. It is over. If we could have built the pyramids, then we are one of the most intelligent and most creative beings
ever. Lanre, that Egypt is not in Africa? Jeez.
Wow. So one last question, Vanessa. One last question. With all of this brain work that you do, you're thinking, you're creating, you're innovating. How do you escape? What is your escape? How do you relax? What do you do to relax?
You know what I've come to? So, you know what, Lanre, for me, my work is not really, it doesn't really feel like work because it excites me a great deal. So I don't find it all that challenging, but something that but I do love to travel. I love to cook. I love to eat. I love to have fun. I love to play with my daughter. But I'd like to share that something that I find more useful than taking long extended break is taking power breaks. Like for me, what works incredibly well is to do deep focused work for like maybe a 45 to 50-minute stretch where I don't answer WhatsApps, I don't watch emails or anything like that, and then I will take a break, and then I will maybe go outside, get some fresh air. But I take intentional power breaks, and I think that keeps my brain sharp.
Powerful. One more question. Your top three books. Top three on creativity and innovation. Top three.
They have to be on creativity and innovation.
No. It can be on anything.
Okay, I love the book called "Did My Neurons Make Me Do It?" That book changed my thinking a lot. I love Atomic Habits. That I think is a great book. Oh, I love the book Deep Work. You see, I can't just think of one. There you go. Fantastic book. I love Deep Work as well. Some brilliant book. I suppose for us as Sense to Solve, one of our most iconic books is definitely Daniel Kahneman, Thinking Fast and Slow. That was my late partner's Bible, and anybody who's ever been part of Sense to Solve had to read that book from cover to cover.
Wow. Thank you very much. Vanessa, for sharing from your wealth of wisdom. And thank you, listeners, for joining me and Vanessa on this Be Transformed podcast. Remember that transformation begins with a renewed mind. We've talked about a growth mindset. We've talked about an open mindset. We've talked about thinking differently and doing things differently. And if you found value in my conversation with Vanessa today, don't keep it to yourself. Share it and subscribe on YouTube. Catch conversation on Spotify and Apple, and make sure that you share it with everybody else. But let's keep transforming minds. Let's keep transforming lives. Africa depends on your transformation. On that note, we'll call it a wrap for today. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Lanre. Thanks, everybody.
I am successful. I look for and find opportunities where others see nothing. I am a lifetime learner. I am solution focused. I see only solutions. I am a solution.